Thank you to the panel members over here. Very interesting panel, and I think we have an opportunity to understand what each of these, everyone in the incubation setup is doing. And then we probably get into some discussions on what possibly should be the framework which we are looking for, and what would be the model in incubation. So I'll just go from my right. Kunal probably, each one of us gives us like 5 points of what we are doing in our acceleration incubation setup.
Thanks, Rajat. Hi, everyone. My name is Kunal Upadhyay. I represent the Center for Innovation, Incubation and Entrepreneurship at IIM Ahmedabad. It's going to be tough for me to say that we are an incubator, because incubation can mean different things to different people. For us, incubation is really the process of de-risking an enterprise. Very often, incubator gets confused with a physical space wherein entrepreneurs are typically located. That's not how we look at incubation as a process. What we've done over the years is we've taken on multiple initiatives to bridge the gaps in the entrepreneurial ecosystem in an attempt to de-risk the entrepreneurship process in general. So we run large-scale scouting programs. So, for example, we do the Power of Ideas in partnership with Economic Times and Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, to scout ideas from across the country. Every year that we run the program, we get close to around 15,000 applications from all over, provide them rigorous mentoring support. Almost 2,000 ideas, whenever we are running this program, actually get provided mentoring support from 500 plus mentors that we've got in our network. What we've also done is we've evangelized entrepreneurship significantly over the years. We published the book Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish, which has now sold close to around 7 lakh copies, been translated into 8 Indian languages. We were the pioneers of IT acceleration in the country. We launched one of India's first internet accelerator called iAccelerator back in 2008, 2009. Ever since, we've used the acceleration process, which is a short-term, maybe 3 to 6 month rigorous engagement process to de-risk the enterprises, providing them access to market, providing them access to funding. As we speak, we run accelerators not just in the usual internet sector, but in sectors like agriculture, healthcare, energy. We've got an accelerator that we just ran, again, in partnership with the Department of Science and Technology and Intel in the Innovate for Digital India space. So we've really been looking at gaps that exist in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, bridge those gaps, and move on. We are a very active seed investor as well. We've got investments in close to 100 odd companies, typically at a very, very early stage, coming out of one of these accelerator programs. We've also set up India's first, call it a public-private academia partnership. We've been talking about PPP mode, but we've set up India's first public-private academia fund, which is focused on the clean tech and sustainability space. It's a 110 odd crore fund with participation from investors, of course, SIDBI. We've got International Finance Corporation, IFC, part of the World Bank Group. We've got BP, Godrej, quite a few like-minded organizations across the public and private sector who've joined in to support entrepreneurs in the clean tech, energy, sustainability space. As we speak, we are in the process of creating what we call the Bharat Fund, which was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister last year, to really provide support to entrepreneurs in sectors like healthcare, agriculture, energy, and affordable technologies. So truly not an incubator, as you would call it, but we call ourselves more of an entrepreneurship center, which tries to identify gaps that exist around us and bridge those gaps systematically.
Thanks, Kunal.
I have a short introduction for us. I represent IIT Bombay Business Incubator. It's called SIGN. We are around for 12 years. And being part of IIT Bombay, our natural focus has been on IP-based, product-based technology companies. And as an incubator, what we try to do is that we try to align with internal resources, or try to leverage internal technology resources, technology expertise, and also try to leverage larger ecosystem and try to bring both the things together. In the process, we create startups. Our program is 3 years. During 3 years, we try to give technical support, but that's one aspect. Another aspect is lots of business support, in-house mentoring, external mentoring, connect with industry as market, connect with industry as funding sources, also their clients. We ourselves have small fund that we have raised from various government agencies that we invest on from time to time, and then our program is for 3 years. Over a period of time, we have done about 82 companies, and naturally it has happened that as an incubator, we had focused more on business creation rather than investment generation. And in the process, because you create good businesses within the company, you also get invested. So that's the history that has happened at SINE IIT Bombay. As we go forward, now we are trying to leverage more and more corporate partnerships. So we are going forward with one hardware specific incubation program with a corporate partnership. We are also setting up healthcare incubator, biotech and biomed incubator with the government support again. And one more program we are doing with another corporate partnership, just focusing on social impact side of ventures. So this is pretty much about us.
Thank you, Pranay. About you, Pranay?
I thought you were going to do a Nascom startup warehouse.
I thought I'd just do that in the end.
Okay. Hi, I'm Pranay. I'm the co-founder of 91 Springboard. We are the biggest co-working community across India with centers based in Delhi, NCR, so Noida, Delhi, Gurgaon, Bombay, Navi Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. In fact, our Bangalore center was set up in a tie-up with Karnataka government where we host the Gifts Incubator, and startups get subsidized offering from Karnataka government to be with us. In our case, our model is co-working based system, and we are a for-profit incubator. Interestingly, I was at CIE and I learned a lot there, and when we were starting 91 Springboard, the idea was that how can we do incubation at scale, and there the co-working model fit well, and that's what we've been doing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Raghunandan. I'm the Executive Director of the Indian Science and Technology Entrepreneur Parks and Business Incubator Association. We are currently the only national level aggregator of incubators and other similar organizations. We bring, of course, I have 4 of my member incubators sitting here, Kunal, Poini, Pranay, and Paul. So our main or core purpose of existence is to strengthen the incubation startup ecosystem in the country. We have a membership base of more than 80 plus incubators, primarily not-for-profit incubators because they were the early movers in this country. But today we see a lot of growing numbers in terms of accelerators and co-working spaces, and a lot of them we would be embracing into our fold. Our hope is that we would be that one collective voice as regards the incubation and startup ecosystem to bring together several different stakeholders and be an effective representative of one and all. Thank you.
Paul.
Thank you. Let me start by painting a grim picture. I'm really worried that we're making all collectively here, making the rich richer. I am worried about it because India has 250 million people who are poor, below the poverty line, another 250 million people who are the lower and middle class, who are extremely vulnerable, who can get back into poverty. I believe the social entrepreneurship movement, which has gained momentum in India, and a whole lot of impact focused incubators and funds and things like that, I think augurs well. So that's the positive part. I run an incubator founded in 2001 because of the belief that such poor people otherwise are left out of market forces, and we need to create social enterprises really in order to create impact on the lives of people. We have incubated around 110 enterprises over the last 15 years. Many of them have gone on to fail, but some of them have gone on to really grow. The first private weather forecasting company in India called SkyMet. The first time milk is now chilled at the village level cooperative society, a company called Promethean Power. The first time anemia is being tested out in villages because otherwise mothers and children would be killed because of of bleeding and things like that. A company called Biosense. We've been extremely happy to support some of these companies. I think what we essentially do is we inspire, we incubate and invest. We inspire by having speaker sessions, social entrepreneurship conferences across 15 cities in India. We do pitch competitions there. We surface great ideas out of those cities. We then incubate them pretty long because it's impact-oriented enterprises. It takes a lot of effort and time to build them. There we actually do a combination of grants and equity. We are a DST-approved incubator that allows us to mix grants with equity and therefore support early-stage companies. The ones that actually mature and far more promising, we have a SEBI-registered venture capital fund, then which actually picks equity and investment, and not a big fund, a 50 crore fund, which now prepares some of these companies to raise larger rounds of capital, and so that the incubators then can actually exit and then possibly monetize and sustain themselves. We actually match them with mentors. Every company that we work with, mentoring is such an important process, so successful for-profit entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs from large corporations are matched with companies. Post 12 months, we make sure that the mentors are incentivized through either equity, while for the first 12 months, we actually pay them a fee. So accountable, incentivized mentoring is what we believe in. So, and lastly, I think we've been hearing about this. One of the biggest challenges is 93% of India children go to government schools. And if education entrepreneurs are innovating a learning pedagogy or a great way to deliver curriculum, there's no way you can create large-scale impact if you don't penetrate the government markets. While I think the Startup India Action Plan is extremely exciting when it comes to considering startups for that, I think the government the process of procurement has still not been flexible. And I think there's a lot to do on that front. What we're doing is now we're actually investing in last-mile private schools which are run by private operators, because we believe that if we did that and created school chains, a lot of the innovators and their products then can be pushed down through those channels. So we do that with PHCs, we do that with primary schools and things like that, which I think will create demand for some of these products. So in addition to funding, mentoring, and a lot of the inspiration work, we're just starting to now create access to markets for some of the entrepreneurs that we incubate. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And if I now may just take off my moderator hat and put on the association hat, part of Nascom 10,000 Startups, and we are an association trying to help startups, technology startups per se right now. There are 4 pillars which we kind of help startups with. The first pillar being on the Connect side, which is basically the Connect program, where we have a FAME model, where it's funding, acceleration, mentorship, and enterprise connect. That's typically we try and help the startups with. We don't take any equity. We don't take any money from startups to be part of this program. So that's a virtual program. And we take startups, qualified startups, even to global access programs like InnoTrek, where we take them out to the Silicon Valley and position these startups. Second is our physical spaces program, which is the incubation. Or rather, it started out as a co-working space with acceleration. And now it's turning out to be incubation. But again, there's always a confusion between acceleration, acceleration, incubation, and plug-and-play space. I feel they all get together. So we have created, through the help of 8 state governments, we have got spaces given by them where startups are housed. Bangalore having the biggest facility, courtesy KBITS. It's about 40,000 square foot. And other areas which spread across Calcutta, Mumbai, Pune, Chennai, Kochi, Vizag, Telangana. So T-Hub has also given us some space. Coming soon is Gurgaon and our office in Noida as well. So close to about we'll be able to house about 250 startups, each with about 3 or 4 people on board, so about 1,000 startups. So we try and help these startups. We make them sit about for 6 months only. The third pillar is around, you see corporate accelerators. So we've built a virtual corporate acceleration model, which is called the NIPP program, Nascom Industry Partner Program. So where we say instead of the corporates jumping in, putting across their own accelerators, we've taken help of some of the corporates to come and support this initiative. So we do a corporate connect program where curated startups from across the industry and put in different verticals and buckets are put across to these corporates for them to look at any M&A opportunity with them. And finally, we have something which is called DevX, a developer program, which is for developers, gaming, non-gaming. We've done Code for the Next Billion for developers, as well as now we're looking at certain student programs. So that's the 4 pillars, and cutting across is we've created the hangout place for startups in Delhi, Mumbai, and in Bangalore, which is basically a platform where startups can come and register themselves. Any startups, investors can come and register themselves. Events happening in a city are put over there. Policies, so we get all the linkages back into the government, so all policy documentation, etc. are put on this web page so that startups can benefit. So that's kind of what, in short, we've put across. So now just taking back the moderator hat over here, I think I'm going to change this session a little bit differently, just like startups want to do things differently. Instead of waiting till the end for question and answers, I think I'll put the questions right now up front for you to ask us, because you've seen what each of the incubation partners, people who are over here in incubation or in accelerators sitting and doing. And with the objective, the objective of this discussion is what should be the framework looking like for incubation? What should be the model for incubation look like? I mean, I'd like to invite some questions over here which you may have specifically for us, or you want us to answer right now so that I can take 5 or 7 questions, and then we can structure our discussion around that. Some of the challenges which you see, some of the issues which you are facing right now. Once you go on to the startup hub, where do you go after that? You could have any such questions behind you. How does one incubator work with the other incubator? So I'm just posing some questions for you, but open it out to the audience over here for your questions so that we can answer. Yeah, that's a dangerous one coming. Okay.
So I know most of you, which is a good thing. So one of the challenges that I had, and I loved that challenge when I got to run T-Hub, was the sense of accountability, right? Can we become self-sustaining and break even? And we've done a great job of becoming probably one of the few break-even incubators in the country. Do you see that as a viable model for each of your incubators, and is that something that should be the path forward, at least for state incubators?
Okay, I got your question. I think we'll just take a couple of questions. We will address the break-even aspects. It's most important, PPP models, what's running, how do you make money? Probably Pranay, keep your answers on. But next, yes.
I'm Harpreet Singh. I also run one education institution. How do you help education institution to have an incubator, which is, we can give space and some of the equipments, but a lot of knowledge is required to run that incubator. So how we can partner that with some of your incubators?
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
To add to his question, my question is to Poini. I wanted to know how institutions which are large in scale have various departments, how do you ensure they are brought together to enhance hardware manufacturing, which is so hard to do nowadays? So your inputs on that.
Hello. Here on the right hand side, here sir.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. My question is, once if you want to start any incubators or startups, the person who has put on his, practical life into that, the startups are actually a convergence business. It cannot be a basic business. When you start a startups, it has to be a convergent. And once it is a convergent, there has to be many experts to guide the initial startups. So how do you get to those at first level? If you don't have the experts in your kitty, you cannot advise the startups. So how do you rate yourself as a master's mentor for the startups, and how far you are having those experts in your kitty? Because the sector is enlarged. It is increasing every day. The innovations are in such a rapid pace that it is very difficult for us to get to the technology. Right. So what is your take on that subject, sir?
Sure, sir. So, your question would be largely around mentorship and expertise to assist the startups, right? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's Rajiv Gulati. I am from Government of Haryana. In fact, we are partnering with Nascom very soon. With the IMA also, we're coming up some incubators. But I also work with the Ministry of HRD. And my question is somehow correlated with before two people said the education, how can the aligned with the incubators. See, my address is like DST, AICT, and other, even UGC, they are providing many funds to the institutions for upgrading their labs and doing even for the entrepreneurship and so many other things. But the outcome from that is very low. You being with the association with the industries, and there is a gap, even if the fourth semester, the last semester person have to do some projects, they are also looking for some industrial linkage, but there is not there. Can there be any model where the government can also rethink of those funding which can be aligned for creating some consortiums of the institutions in particular fields? Like most of the institutions are now in the, away from the main cities because of their land and all those requirements. And we also want to serve to the bottom of the pyramid. Can these incubators or can this, some philosophy can be created over there to serve that society also with those funds which have been like in piecemeal divided to these institutions but are not bringing any funds with the help of your association, the industry to those institutions?
Okay, so industry linkages, industry connects.
With the government, with the finances.
Good. I mean, probably one or maybe, that's the last question? Two, so that at least we can start the discussion and have some of these questions answered. And if you finish early, we will ask, we'll look up. Yeah.
Hello. Myself Rajiv Ranjan from ITS Engineering College, Greater Noida, from academics. Sir, there is a large gap between industry and academia curriculum. So, can we suggest university to frame their syllabus in such a way that that would meet the demand of the university? So, some requirement of change of syllabus according to our industry requirement should be there. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And we had one more question.
My name is Ajay Mutreja, and last couple of months I have interacted with a number of private sector companies in India and also with DRDO and with Department of Science and Technology. What I'm observing is there are enough innovative ideas available in the country. The biggest problem is market linkages, biggest problem is mentoring. Paul, this is also to you because you said you can create matchmaking between the innovator and the mentors. And going back to my experience of looking at a number of incubation centers, innovation centers linked with universities, I went back to 2001. I was in both Silicon Valley as well as in Philadelphia, looking at what Wharton Business School, University Science City Center did, specifically for biotechnology or high-tech areas. It was all linkages between the industry. I think this was a question we also posed in the morning session. Ideas are enough. Go-to-market has to be made better. Industry needs more cost savings. So there's no dearth of ideas. Problem is how do you scale them up and how do you bring them to the market?
Sure. So I mean, if I put it across global linkages or industry linkages, global access, market access, right? So I think we've probably got some questions we can start off with at this stage. So maybe why don't we just start looking at, access to incubation at school level, and how are the linkages going to be built along with, larger institutions like, probably Poini, you may want to take that on, and then Kunal, maybe we can help you to start off with. So what's your plan to, and how do you to kind of put across, support across these setups?
So we as a center have been doing a lot of work to both promote entrepreneurship within the institution. We are based at IIM Ahmedabad, as well as among students across the country. There are different models of doing it. Maybe I'll talk about a couple of low-hanging fruits for any educational institution to consider. For every student that is now coming and joining IIM Ahmedabad, there is a basic course on entrepreneurship, which is a compulsory course being taught to every student who's actually going through an MBA program. Very, very low-hanging fruit, pretty much every institution can do it. Couple of years back, what we did, and I mean, maybe I take a step back, almost 10 years back, what we did was we said that any student who is graduating out of IIM Ahmedabad and decides to go down the entrepreneurial path, if his venture doesn't succeed, 2 years later, you can come back and sit for another job. Now, this is something which has been replicated amongst all marquee institutions across the country ever since. What we've also done is we've engaged closely with IMA alumni. What they are doing is they are actually providing a very, very small stipend to cover the basic costs of living for people who are graduating out of IMA and taking the road less travel. We call it the IM Mavericks, which is a great program. Every year we've got close to around 25 students who decide to not take up a corporate job and pursue their dreams. Alums who graduated several years back are actually providing them a stipend. But what is more important than the stipend is the great amount of networks. I mean, their ability to understand the markets, their access to market, their ability to actually validate an idea. That's the kind of mentorship that these individuals are able to provide to the entrepreneurs. What we also did, again, a low-hanging fruit for academic institutions to consider, is that summer internships, which typically used to be a corporate summer internship, we've now let our students take on summer internship wherein they'll actually pursue their own ideas. So during that 2-year period, they are actually able to come out with specific business plans that they'll work on in the second year, and finally they can actually commercialize it. So several things that we've done to promote entrepreneurship within the institution. But what we've also been very actively doing, and this is something that we do through our various programs. I mean, we've got a state-level incubation activity that we run in partnership with the Gujarat state government. We've got a very active partnership that we are running with the Rajasthan state government, wherein the evangelization is happening pretty much at the college level. The most basic thing that most colleges should be doing is creating an entrepreneurship cell. But several layers of it that can be added on top of it, which we've already been doing, and happy to have a more detailed discussion around that separately.
So, I mean, are you saying that probably in the curriculum have an 80-20 kind of a rule which says 20%, like some of the corporates do that. Like 20% of the time you're allowed to do something which is to your interest.
Yeah. It'll be good to produce more non-conformists. What is happening, unfortunately, in the Indian education system is that everyone is being made to think a certain way. The more flexibility that you give the students to think out of the box, I think the greater is the chance that they're going to be able to become entrepreneurs and do something which is going to be out of the box.
And I believe DIPP side does have, even on entrepreneurship, their education, there's a link where you can, kind of learn about how to become an entrepreneur, how to put up a startup. So I think probably that's another needs promotion then.
Right.
Poini, what about your views on education institutions? And I think Tanushri had one on the hardware setups. How can colleges like yours support that?
Sure. So I think when you are in academic institute, you have multiple ways to engage external community. So we pretty much do what Kunal said, like, alumni leveraging is extremely important. At your technical resources level, your faculty level or institute level, industries are already, in fact, being an academic institute, it's very, easy to invite corporate attentions, right? So they get leverage. And there are so many entrepreneurial activities now are happening in ecosystem. So students, faculty can easily get access, just like, partner with them, and then they are there within the campus. So I think if you are part of academia or academic institute nowadays, it's not really challenging. How do you involve them? And what is challenging is that what kind of specific program you work out with them so that you can maximum leveraging out of the whole thing. And of course, I'm somewhat in a much better position because within IIT, I think IIT Bombay is the most entrepreneurial community. So student level, we have a very active student body on the campus. They run largest business plan competition and entrepreneurship melas on the campus. Incubation center is one of the oldest center in the country. And similarly, at institute level, lots of corporate engagements are happening. So like, we at our level, we all try to work with each other and try to gain maximum out of the situation. At a different degree, I think everyone can do pretty much the same thing. Coming back to your hardware and multi-department, out there, I think you have to start, it's pretty much top-down approach, that's my experience, that at institute level you have certain even policies, say policies on IP side, IP commercialization side, policies on usage of technical resources within the campus, then policy on faculty engagement with entrepreneurship. If you have some policy at the institute level, I think everyone gets basically, even opportunity to engage with entrepreneurship. And second thing, what we have done at the IIT Bombay is that Incubator is actually engaging with every department at faculty level and institute level through IP and research tracking process. So we actually, we go to a micro action level that we try to find out students and we actually pay them to work on certain idea, work on certain business plan, that whether there is a feasibility of commercialization or at a small stipend money. Yeah. In fact, we have done about 80 odd companies. Nearly 35 companies are based on technologies directly coming out of IIT Bombay, where faculty involvement is there. So
I think I'm going to rope in Raghu over here, because Raghu, you mentioned that you were helping out setting up a hardware incubation as well.
Yeah.
So, there is one center, IIT, which is doing hardware. How does that get replicated in everything else which the other folks are doing?
Before answering that, I think just one step back. I think in educational institutions, what's very important is who's going to run the incubator. That probably will be the biggest key point, and I come from this fact that even today, incubators, I think 70% of our incubators are in academic institutions. Predominantly, DST has been the pioneer, and I think in all the places where typically incubators have been very successful amongst this community was when a professor was not heading it. It was more because incubation requires a very different skill set, which typically may or may not be found in academic faculty. So educational institutions, I think the first thing that you need to decide is, who's going to run the incubator. And the second, I guess, is the model. For example, you're going to have an incubator in, say, Chalkaranji or Bagalkot, or for that matter, Jaisalmer. It's going to be a lot different when the same incubator is going to be in an education institution which is in a bigger city. So arriving at the model. So I think we at the association, we run a lot of capacity building programs to help educational institutions set up incubators. So right now we are doing a program with the Ministry of MSME and trying to set up incubators in tier 2 cities and in sectoral areas like automotive, defense, electronics, and so on. We have also engaging with the Telangana government as well as the Maharashtra government in setting up hardware incubators. And we decide that we arrived at a model with our huge experience of more than 30 years, is that even if it's going to be an educational institution or for that matter any other entity, I think what works is setting up an incubator as a partnership or as a consortium where you bring an industry partner, you bring an academic partner, you bring somebody else, and you set it up more. Of course, that's very difficult in India, but I think some models are emerging wherein you bring this kind of a consortium where each player brings a specific thing to the table. And that's the way we are going forward as far as building the incubator strength in India is concerned. But I think still education institutions will still form the bulwark, because I think that's where we have the luxury of space, we have the luxury of land, and we also have the potential of the future entrepreneurs also coming from there.
Absolutely, but that also brings across another point which Jay was raising was on accountability, right? And so your views, and maybe probably let's start from your end, social entrepreneurship, social incubation, accountability, break even. How do you think about that? How do you manage that?
You've really given me a tough one. But can I just step back, because I thought there was an interesting point on there are a lot of great ideas available point, and then the convergence of experts question, and then I'll come back to your question on sustainable. I'll take that last. I'll have little time for that. I don't believe that there are great quality ideas. I think there is quantum. I'm not too sure about quality, and let me tell you why. When I mean quality, I mean product market fit. And I'm being very specific about that. I don't think there are ideas where there is a good product market fit. And especially in the field that I work, which is social entrepreneurship, the reason why product market fit doesn't exist is because of the following. Entrepreneurs who serve the bottom of the pyramid segment are not the extremely affluent. It's not the extremely poor. It's actually middle and upper middle class. If you see the demographics of most successful social entrepreneurship, you'll see that they are more the middle and the upper middle class. The problem today is the upper and middle class younger entrepreneurs have actually not seen low incomes in their households. So they haven't been exposed to the problems of the poor as much as possible. I mean, as much as one would like to. Great entrepreneurship is all about being immersed in the problem and then generating customer insights and then coming up with a solution for it. So most of the entrepreneurs that we see, unfortunately, are disconnected. And therefore, I certainly believe that if we have to increase the quality part, the quantum is there, I agree, but the quality, I would say, is pathetically low. If that has to be increased, I think it's a lot of work has to be done on immersing this budding entrepreneur population into problems. And let me end by only talking about an example which has really inspired me. The Magsaysay Award winner of last year, Dr. Harish Hande, who set up a company called Selco, realized that he wanted to solve the problem of lighting. And millions of people are living in houses without lights. So he said, the only way I can actually experience that is I need to live in a house which doesn't have electricity and in a hut which is unelectrified, right? And he did that for 6 months. That was the way he actually immersed in the problem. And I think that if we did that, and I'm sure DIPP and other Niti Ayog's programs should do large-scale immersion if we are to really create product market fit and therefore improve quality. The quantity is never a problem. Everyone wants to be creative, everyone wants to contribute, but I think quality is the problem.
There was another one, but maybe we'll get into it because you said it's tougher one. Pranay, maybe let's start off with you. If you've got your inputs on accountability, on probably also, why don't you touch on what are the metrics which you have, which you're using to measure startups so that quality aspects is done. And also, I think there was a question around mentorship. If you can give a thought on what you guys do on these three fronts.
Sure. So on the sustainability part and Jay's question, this is one of my favorites because especially when we started 91 Springboard, we had a choice between setting up a for-profit versus a Section 8 companies which have been traditionally recommended. And we thought that if we can make it a profitable, sustainable business, we'll be able to scale it up faster, and that's what we've been able to prove. And we've been put up as poster childs also, saying incubation can be profitable, sustainable. The ones which aren't doing it are probably doing something wrong. Frankly, I don't agree. I think, so your model and my model, which is more around the rental equivalent income, that's sustainable faster, but then it's suited only to certain geographies and it works easier there. The equity model is typically longer run and it takes anywhere from maybe 5 years to maybe 15 years to be sustainable. And if biotech, frankly, I don't even understand it, but my assumption would be like, if I'm questioning a biotech incubator working on equity model before 20 years, probably I'm doing something wrong. So I do feel incubation, the sustainability is also a point of buy when versus sustainable or not. And to that extent, I do think a lot of incubators do continue to need grant support beyond what our policies are currently providing. I do think on the attitude part though, the sustainability attitude should be there and the whole customer service model should be there. And why I'm saying that again is because traditionally when the incubators were set up in India, they were always set up with a be in an institute. The first few incubators, it was a rule saying you have to be in an institute, you have to be a Section 8 company. And interestingly, there itself a dichotomy was created where it was told that you have to be a separate entity, yet you have to be an institute. So what does separate and to be in an institute mean, right? And second, Section 8 or Section 25 by default or a trust by default means you can't distribute profit. and hence you've to some extent killed the need to be profitable, right? So I think that's where the attitude got mixed a bit. That said, as the program grew and over 5-year period when the incubators realized they won't get any more grants, they were forced to start thinking sustainability, and that's what worked there.
So back, Paul.
Rajat,
Yeah.
just
I
can
wanted to give Paul an opportunity on that
Yeah.
one, as well as add, something else, maybe make it a little bit more difficult for him. That no,
I thought you
when he
would
will come
pass
to you.
that, yeah.
We got 5
But
minutes, so
anyway,
a
you got
couple of
me.
more questions.
My board has been very worried about this. So each time, each board meeting, they come and tell me, hey, worry about sustainability. I said, we are now 15 years old. Every year they tell me this, right? I think we need to see sustainability slightly larger. If we are in the business of investing in innovation, if we are in the business of investing in technology and early stage technology, if we are in the business of actually investing in early stage entrepreneurs, and if that community is first generation entrepreneurs, I think putting that as a very important metric, I think might be an unwise decision, because I've seen mission drift happening. In order to achieve sustainability, you then trade off on all this. We've seen a portfolio change as we've actually done that. I think I agree that the space approach does work. We've actually chosen the investing approach. So if you start looking at it from the entrepreneurs that we're trying to incubate and the time that they take to make money, and then you start actually looking at the incubator on top, which is going to have a lot of failures, and if those successes don't really scale to cover the losses, I think thinking about a financially sustainable model, in my mind, I think is challenging. And thanks to the CSR Act and things like that, which is actually helping us. But I think the beauty of this is the whole fact that incubators should start making equity investments, having funds, teaming up with funds and actually making sure that there are equity positions taken, and as the companies grow, you exit and things like that, I think are good ways. But for us, we've defined that sustainability means, financial sustainability means, if we can sustain the costs of the core team, as opposed to a whole lot of programmatic costs, we can sustain the core costs of the organization, which actually gives it life and can continue, we said we'll be happy with it. So that's how we've seen sustainability.
To Kunal, you're using some CSR money for sustainability as well, right? So maybe some light on that. And is the CSR only limited to social innovation? Can it not be just, say, innovation? So that could be available for the larger community?
Sure.
Any view on that?
I'll answer that question, but let me just pick up from what Paul was saying. The way I look at incubation is it belongs to almost the same asset class as a venture capital or a private equity. An important point to note is a venture capital or a private equity are typically the most well-resourced people. They've got the best talent. They've got the highest paid people. They put in huge amount of investment in de-risking companies which have to a large extent already been de-risked by incubators. So in that sense, they are dealing with much larger money but much smaller amount of risk. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got incubators who are typically understaffed, under-resourced, managing much greater number of companies with a much smaller amount of money, and expecting that it will become a self-sustainable model very easily is, according to me, a tough one. Has anyone asked the question, how does a VC or a private equity fund become sustainable? It's their success which makes them sustainable. If after one fund that they've invested over a 5 or 7 year period, they are unable to show value creation, they are not going to get the next fund, and therefore it won't be sustainable. I think a similar metrics need to be applied, which is what DST and DIPP are really trying to do. Support the incubators for a 5 or 7 year period. See if enough successes can be created. And I think beyond that time, the amount of contribution that the government makes should go down. And that's where the CSR comes in. I think that's an enormous value creation that can happen for the incubators. We've had the experience of working with some great large corporates ranging from a Mahindra to a Bajaj to Tata's to doing a lot of work with Castrol, who are all coming forward, actively engaging with us, SAP, who are all very actively engaging with us and providing not just financial support, but access to market, which at the end of the day is the most important missing link that exists for most of these startups. So that's again a great way of bridging the gap. So I think several models exist in which the incubators or accelerators can be made sustainable. Again, the one example that most people look up to as the most successful incubator or accelerator is Y Combinator in the US. It's a private sector incubator or accelerator. They actually invest in company rather than charging from the company. Have been able to scale extremely well. Now run a $150 odd million fund. At the same time, look at something like a WeWork, which is closer to what 91 Springboard is. They've been able to create co-working spaces across the world, not necessarily an incubator per se, but it's a co-working model, a rental model, which can scale up really well. So different models that exist to build your sustainability.
Great. I'm going to ask, Poini, I know you wanted to answer, but let's give you a difficult question, which I was not asked from the audience. That's around registration, right? So all of you can give a letter to the startups for registration. How is that a process among all of you or all of us, which says this is how we're going to judge a startup, this is on the basis of which we're going to give him a yes or no for registration? How do you do that? How do you
so you want me to be politically correct or incorrect? Yeah. So anyway, coming to, I think with SIDBI, the incubator community is trying to create a framework. How do we give out this recommendation later? But at the same time, I think it's actually also one input or feedback to the ministry. That definition of startup, innovation, scalability, every buzzword is put in one definition and it becomes too fuzzy. Yeah. And for incubator, I think additional word is that couple of recommendations, if they are not found appropriate, then we are blacklisted. That's not the case for VCs when they give out. And let me put it, I'm going to offend some of the VCs here if they are in this room, that VCs are not necessarily investing in innovative startup, they are investing in scalable startup, right? But they will give out the letters to their companies. So here is some kind of imbalance is happening. It's incubation versus VCs, and now 27 other bodies are, identified for them. It would be really, really helpful if the ministry creates some kind of, common level for all of us to assess it, right? Said that because of this fuzziness at sign, we are giving out letter only to our own companies because we have gone through the due diligence processes. Yeah, according to us, if it is innovation, then it has to go through due diligence process, and that involves some kind of work. So we are not equipped to do that. So this is what my take on the thing.
All of us echo on that, or if there's any difference of opinion, we chime in. Otherwise, I think we're all on the same page, right?
Thank you.
I think probably
I just want to talk about sustainability. If you have 1 minute or two, I don't know. Because I'm academic institute. I'm not for-profit institute. Yeah, every element not which is not going in favor of sustainability. But we are self-sustaining from very next year. How we can take it offline, but it is possible for an academic institute-driven incubator to be self-sustainable.
Okay, great. And I think we haven't answered one of the questions on mentorship, because that's one of the missing links on incubation. We'll probably address it later outside. Also, I think, there is a Singapore incubation model, there's an Israeli incubation model. I think we all need to kind of sit across and put together an India incubation model which is global. So I think, we have to scale to that level because we have to put our startups on the global map. We have to give them market access, not only in India, but also market access abroad.
Though not a model, yeah. Models. India incubation models.
Models. So I don't think we've got time for questions at the end because we took them in the beginning. So hopefully we've tried and answered most of your questions here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Karan.